All right. Welcome back, friends, listeners. Brandon. It's recorded, but it will be edited. Welcome back, everybody. UFC 278 is behind us, and it was a bit of a wild one. I'd imagine that a lot of gamblers were very unhappy on Saturday night because two of the very heavy favorites on the card came up short. We'll get into all the details. And when I say wild, if you, the listener, weren't watching the card, it can be easy to misunderstand that to mean that it was all good, and that it was not. It was exciting. There were definitely a lot of shocking results and outcomes, but there was certainly some low points. Some of that having to do with some fanboy dreams of ours getting crushed, and then most of it having to do with the location that this card was taking place in, which let's go ahead and just touch on that a bit before we get into the fights. This can be a kind of a primer because it's likely to come up again multiple times during this episode. So, Brandon, enlighten us. What was the biggest issue with UFC 278?
It just literally our dreams went up into thin air. Like our dreams for Jose Aldo winning a champion. I mean, I think for me, the thing that I heard, and I'll give credit to some. It wasn't my podcast. It wasn't yours or ours. But there's a podcast on that talked about, nothing is more low rent or shows like super low rent than fighters not being able, or athletes not being able to acclimate into the areas that they're fighting in. And not everyone's a Kamaru Usman who can go and train in high altitude weather. Like if you watched Embedded, Alexander Romanov was literally training in a fucking parking lot, like after he got out of the plane. And it's like, come on, dude. And I get, but if the UFC expects these guys to fight in somewhere that's a lot more, this is different than where they usually do, where anyone would fight. I mean, in a random place where anyone would fight, they should be able to fly their fighter to say, hey, this might be a bit of an issue for us, especially for the guys that don't train or the gals that don't train in this area. Can we please bring them out here a week or two, maybe even 3 weeks out? We'll put you guys up, and you guys will create a little mini PI center away from the PI center we have, and you guys train, and we'll put you guys on, whatever you would call that. I'm gonna sound super stupid, but when they're running on the treadmill, their oxygen levels are like, okay, you're acclimated.
Right.
Let's get you guys fighting the right way. Why not do that?
Yeah.
I mean, the UFC is a multi-billion-dollar industry now. You take things like the NFL, like their sports teams, when they play 2 weeks in a row on the East Coast, but they're a West Coast team, the ownership will pick a spot, say they're playing in New Jersey and Miami, right? Mm-hmm. Pick a spot in West Virginia, which is right in the middle, but it's still East Coast. They rent out a facility, get their players acclimated to that weather, to that time zone, and you see very little drop off in their performance. How hard would it have been?
Not hard at all.
Yeah. Was it 15, 16, 18 fighters at the most? And just put them in their team up and get a couple of gyms and have the guys train and get acclimated to it. What's so hard about that?
Yeah. And like you mentioned too, like set up a little mini PI or something too. It's totally feasible. Because I kind of feel bad for Salt Lake City because they were a good crowd. I don't want them to not go back, but I was surprised by, like, in a fight like Aldo versus Dvalishvili, where they shouldn't necessarily be for either guy. They just kind of recognized that Aldo's a legend and said, okay, well, we're rooting for this guy. And they did that a few.
That was a heartwarming moment.
Yeah.
When everyone was cheering. I mean, fucking Salt Lake City, Utah, and
of all
some
places.
guy from the favelas of Brazil is getting, like, just cheered to the rafters. It's just full noise for him.
So it was an enthusiastic crowd, and I wouldn't want to punish them by saying, like, I'm sorry, you guys exist at elevation. We're never coming back. I mean, we would want them to have fights, but set up a little satellite PI there for when they decide to go back. The fighters can have that option, or like like you kind of alluded to, other places where fights are like Mexico City. It's a place
Right.
that we know that the UFC wants to go back to in time. They're always trying to build Mexican fighters. That's a place that can definitely use it. Set up a PI there. Because if some of these fighters that they're investing in start to cash in, they're definitely going back to Mexico City, and we've seen it be a problem there, even more so than Salt Lake City. But yeah, multiple fighters on this card very clearly affected by the altitude, and it's something that I'll speak for both of us. Neither of us remember to really account for. Like I forgot that Salt Lake City was at altitude. I
It
didn't
did
even really
not occur
remember.
to me. Yeah.
Didn't occur to me at all going into this, and I'm not going to say my picks would have been different, but I would have probably been a lot less surprised by some of what
Here we
happened.
go.
No,
Here we
no,
go
no.
with
There's no
the here we
revisionist
go with the
history.
League Rockhold backtrack, and let's just get into it, huh?
Oh, I've said it. I'll go on the record, and I'll say it when we get to that fight. But fuck it. Yeah,
Fuck them.
Sea Level Rockhold would have won that fight. Anyways,
Oh, sure
let's
you would.
let's go ahead and start at the top of the card. Edwards versus Usman, the reigning welterweight champ, dethroned. Kamaru Usman was a five-time defending champion, which is kind of an underrated feat. Once you get into like 5 title defenses, like as far as like in the pantheon of great UFC champions, that's kind of when you actually start to get. That's when you start to sit at the throne with the real legends. But the truth of the matter is that like so many more former UFC champs have 0 title defenses. That's kind of the name of the game. Like it's very, very hard to win consistently and consecutively at the top of the division, especially a division like welterweight. And it is just, I mean, that's kind of a no-duh thing to say. Like, of course it's difficult to win, but it's so
Right.
easy to lose because of variables in mixed martial arts and all the different ways you can lose and the kind of unique matchups that you can face. As far as the fight itself, outside of some early success for Edwards, controlling Usman on the ground for maybe like half of round 1, Kamaru Usman held Leon Edwards in the palm of his hand for the better part of 5 rounds. I would say that of the 24 minutes that this fight lasted, Leon Edwards probably only won maybe 2 of those minutes, and like a fraction of a second of one of those minutes, that being the actual moment when he knocks out Kamaru Usman with a head
Yeah.
kick. And then he folded him. He left him staring up at the lights while he strutted around the cage in celebration, realizing what he'd been working to achieve for over 10 years. Leon Edwards is now our UFC welterweight champion. Before the head kick, Brandon, I got to ask you, was this fight playing out the way that you expected it to? And how would you gauge your confidence in Usman if they do an immediate rematch?
It was playing out the way the takedown that Edwards had surprised me, and then getting Mount so fast after taking him down surprised the fuck out of me.
Technically manages
Uh,
to come in and be the first
yeah,
guy officially to take Kamaru Usman down in the UFC, which is like the last guy I would have expected to do that. But sorry, go
right.
on.
No, and I think it felt good to watch that fight and like kind of a little bit of how what we spoke about with the fluidity that Leon Edwards, he has to his game, how smooth he is in between. We saw all of it
Hmm.
from striking to wrestling. You know, in the moments that he was successful, you saw like how smooth he was, especially when he had Usman's back and he was just it was strike to the side of the head, strike to the side of the head, and then fish the arm over to the other side. And then it would Usman once Usman started to grab onto the wrist, he fished it back over, and so there was 3 or 4 different transitions to where he almost had a rear naked choke on Kamaru Usman, and the way that he was doing it looked so like you would have thought he was ADCC, you know, world champion, or open weight no gi Brazilian Jiu Jitsu champion. By the way, he just looked optically,
Hmm.
someone who does this all day long and trains all day long, black belt, high level guy, could have poked holes in it. But just for
Hmm.
people who watch MMA, it didn't look any different than if you would have seen Fabrice Overdoom doing something like that, or
Good point.
even Charles Oliveira. It looks optically looked the exact same.
Yeah.
And then when he stands up, he looked like you know, not quite Israel Adesanya, but I mean, you would have been hard pressed to say he didn't look like a world class Muay Thai fighter. And when he was wrestling, he fucking took down the pound for pound featherweight, or featherweight, sorry, the pound for pound welterweight champ, or pound for pound champ of the UFC, wrestling base, Olympic, Olympically trained wrestler, never been taken down, took him down, and then got mount on him, and that's insane. So the way how smooth he looked was just great. And then one thing that I do want to say, DC was talking about, especially when it was like those rough moments for Edwards when it was just deep water and he was just drowning in the takedowns and his eyes were just huge and he was getting yelled at by his corner and DC said, well, this is what happens when you take on a wrestler. He puffed his chest out about how wrestling's the best base for MMA, and you can't argue it. I mean, there's literally close to 2 decades of evidence to state that's true.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, the thing is Leon Edwards has gotten better at grappling and wrestling, but once you get tired, once you're at elevation, all of that goes in might work in the first round, but someone that's been training for 5 years or since he was 5 years old is gonna have the advantage because his technique isn't gonna fade. His technique isn't gonna go away when in the later rounds. And now you can say there's something to be said about someone who's been training stand up his whole life. And in the later rounds, what the fuck was Kamaru Usman's wrestling going to do when he got kicked in the side of the fucking head? And one of the most lethal shots we've seen anyone take.
Might as well have been a baseball bat.
Yeah. It was in the fifth round of, we saw fighters probably a lot better suited to fight in a 5-round fight waning. I mean, you saw, of all people, Merab Dvalishvili not putting the output that he had because of the elevation and the climate. So the fact that Leon Edwards had that technique, he had that in his head, and he was able to pull that off in the 5th round with that kind of power, it goes to show, like, striking and having clean, I don't think, maybe he could have, but I don't think Usman could have pulled out a shot like that to win it if the roles were reversed. He wouldn't have been able to just outstrike Leon Edwards in the end. So,
good point.
That's one point that I really stuck with me.
Yeah, no, I like what you said about like you kind of needed to give some props to someone who's been striking for as long as Edwards has, like in equal to what Kamaru Usman has been doing in the grappling, because Leon Edwards mentioned, like in his post-fight press conference interviews, that he didn't really necessarily acclimate that well to the altitude, and he said that he'd kind of been lying to everybody like the whole week while that he was there, where he felt like his lungs were on fire, but he didn't want to let anybody know. So he's like, well, this is what it is. I'm just gonna have to deal with it. And he said that it's funny because not only does it affect your cardio, like there's a different amount of oxygen in the air. It'll literally start to fuck with the way you think. So that makes me want to give him a lot more credit for the patience that he showed, because a lot of fighters, by the time you've been getting your ass whipped for 4 rounds by Kamaru Usman, you're ready to just go out there and survive the last round. And there was a lot of space. There was a lot of like dead air right before the fight ending sequence, where Leon Edwards, and that's why, I mean, not that I've seen too many people try and call fluke or anything like that, or call it a lucky shot. There's not. I mean, you don't just throw a head kick. That you're hiding behind a fake jab. He
had been setting up all night long.
Exactly. It was totally set up, and it's masterful. And it's just like, you can look at a submission attempt and see like where it starts and where it ends. Or you could look at a wrestler shooting a shot and chaining a takedown together. But when you see the striker, most people, myself included, will see what Leon Edwards did and think that that's just a fraction of a second thought. He just decided to throw that kick. It's like, no, he's probably been looking for that kick for a few rounds at least.
Right.
So yeah, super impressive. There was a lot of criticism of Dean Thomas mid-fight, of his mid-fight assessment of Leon Edwards. He mentioned Edwards not looking at his coach in the eye while being instructed in his corner. and said
Yeah,
that means Edwards was broken and
ashamed.
ashamed to look at his coach
Please,
in the eye.
Jesus Christ.
With the benefit of hindsight, I mean, it's really easy to pile on Dean here. But while he was saying it, did any part of you kind of agree with him?
No, and it's easy to pile on Dean with it because he's done it so many times. He carried water for Adesanya, and the last time was like, okay, I know it just looks like a jab, but it's technically different. It's thumb up jab, and a lot of you motherfuckers don't understand that. And it's
Mm.
like, dude, we're watching this with our own. You think I I'm like
Choking on my
I
own rage here.
Yeah, no, and like I like Dean Thomas, and
Yeah,
I
I
like
don't
him as a
dislike him.
fighter. I like him in the, but like the you can really fucking tell that the biases. There's just no way to hide it.
Mhm.
There's absolutely zero way to hide it, guys. Like let's just call it what it is. You guys are fucking paid shield. The fucking refs were.
Yeah.
I mean, fucking Usman had his fingers in the cage. Fucking,
Oh,
I mean,
we'll get to the
close
cheating.
to
Yeah.
close to 8 times, and nothing.
Mm.
And then Leon Edwards does it the one time, which is cheating. It's not like he gets away with it because it's fucking the guy you went to school with murdered 5 people. You only murdered one, so you're okay. No, you're still cheating, but fucking the ref jumped right on his ass. Get your fucking fingers out of the cage! God damn it! And it's like, dude, like, have you not seen the acne back gentleman doing that all fucking night? And literally that changed the dynamic of the fight for because well, I mean, we're kind of stepping all over it, but I guess as far as what Dean Thomas was saying about the corner and being ashamed, he's probably fucking searching for breath. Let's be honest. He's searching for breath. He's probably glancing over at Usman to see how he is. He dealing with that shit too? Like, is he feeling that shit too? It's not that he's not listening. He was obviously fucking listening, dumbass. He was obviously listening to what his corner was saying. But I'm sure in that moment he's like, fucking, he's just breathing. He's trying to catch his breath. He's gasping for air. The guy who's beating the fuck out of him, because
Just,
I mean, credit to Kamaru Usman that's exactly what he was the game plan for
yeah.
him. You know it was, and he's probably looking over at Usman like, is he feeling it? Is he gasping? Is he breathing? Is he choking down the water too, just like me? It's not like he's ashamed, like he forgot to pull the chicken out before his mom got home. He I mean, Jesus Christ, the guy's the welterweight champion of the world now. You think you can't look his brother in the eye and like be like, dude, I don't know, it's fucking Kamaru Usman here. It's just crazy.
Kind of dealing with the consensus like number 1 or number 2 pound for pound fighter in the world here. Like, give me a break. Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't like he was getting smacked around and like knocked out, bleeding all over.
No.
I mean, after the fight, he looked fine. He had a couple of marks on him. But I mean, all he was getting out cage wrestled all night long.
Yeah.
That's nothing. Come on, dude.
It was efficient dominance by Kamaru Usman, but he wasn't like putting a beating on Leon Edwards to where we ever thought like, oh, dude, like the ref should think about stepping in here. No, it was just a really efficient output from Kamaru.
Yeah, and so it's just these guys, and I think I'm going hard in the paint as far as like, what the fuck are you talking about? You do get caught up in the moment. The crowd's, going off. You're there with DC and Rogan, and they're saying there's, which, to be fair to them, it wasn't as bad of a card as they've been on, so I can't really hate on them for it. But, you're in that moment and you want to say something that, and I mean, if fucking Edwards loses, no one says a word about it.
Yeah.
So, which he was close to losing. So everyone agrees with Dean Thomas. Like, man, did you catch that, Dean? He caught in his eyes. That's why he's there. So, but even if he would have been, I would have. That's just such a bad take. And I get it in the moment. And he's not a classically trained broadcaster either, to where he's not, Vince Scully or someone, and he just understands the moment and how to kind of maintain it. He probably got swept up in it and said, hey, well, why isn't he looking his corner in the eyes? That's kind of weird.
You are 100% right about the bias, though, because if you if you go on YouTube and look up Dean Thomas Kamaru Usman, there is a series of videos of Dean Thomas doing a spot on, like a perfect Kamaru Usman impression. Like if
Yeah, I've seen
you've seen
that.
him.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're they're close. I'll just say that.
I mean,
Not that
hairline and everything.
yeah, and I mean at that point, like it's kind of like, what am I being a stickler about? Dean Thomas is just giving commentary. It's not like he's reffing or judging or anything where that bias can kind of like interfere with anything. But at the same time, it is one of those deals where it's like, come on, as the viewer, don't treat us like we're stupid, like kind of
Right.
like. But
And that's been my main point going on the UFC commentary with Rogan and DC and Dean Thomas is they treat you like you're fucking dumb. And it's like I tell my girl all the time, like we're watching Hulu or whatever it is, and then they have ads,
mhm.
and it's like, okay, she's like, "Whoa, that's a weird ad. That was an ad for like butt crack deodorant," and I was like, "Well, they're advertising to the people that they think fucking that watch the fucking show, so that's who they think is watching this, so they
Exactly.
advertise it to sell it. So that's what Dean Thomas thinks of us.
Hey there,
He
fight
think,
fan. You got a sweaty ass crack?
yeah,
We got something
that's what
for
they.
that.
That's what Dean Thomas thinks of us, is that we're too stupid to understand that someone like Leon Edwards, who's been through what he's been through, 10 fights, he's all of a sudden ashamed to look his brother and trainer in the eye.
He's
Yeah,
got to where he's at right now in the welterweight title fight of the world in the UFC, and he's that. Right, he's broken. This man is a broken man. Why?
yeah,
Because of
he's broke.
takedown attempts? Because of being
Yeah,
held down? Like, come on.
yeah.
Like we've
I
seen him.
guarantee you, I would bet every last penny that I had, so like $215 says that that fucking Leon Edwards was just like, shit, dude, this fucking air is no joke. Like, is Usman over there breathing like that? Yeah, I guarantee you
Oh
that's what
yeah,
it was.
yeah. So once the title changed hands, now like we expected, all of the studs at welterweight and at least one of the very typical rank squatters that you would expect have started to come out of the woodwork and try to make their case for being number one contender or the next title challenger. If for whatever reason they decide to not give Kamaru Usman his immediate rematch, or let's say Kamaru Usman himself decides to take some time off or something like that.
He's going to.
You think so? I'm not quite.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I'm not so sure.
Quite a bit of it.
I would be more than happy if he took some time off because
And
I'm
that
just
Edwards,
never been the fan of the immediate rematch. In this scenario, I'm honestly a little bit more okay with it.
yeah,
I would like to see Leon Edwards get like to just not have to do it twice. It's still fucked up for him to have to do it twice, but it was just it was such a touching celebration. I mean, no man on earth could look at a guy like that did what Leon Edwards did, call his mom and say, "Mom, I did it," like,
yeah,
and not like just fucking feel it right in the heart. So
yeah,
it is tough to march
and
him out
not
there.
need subtitles to understand what he said, but at the same time, we
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, man. In tears, really, really touching celebration. So I would be more than happy if Kamaru Usman did decide to kind of like sit on the bench for a little bit and just
Yeah.
kind of let the dust settle and let the division breathe for a little bit. If that were the case, who would you like to see Leon Edwards fight moving forward? Do we reward him with the Masvidal fight, or do we?
No, he gets Hamza Chimaev.
Hamzat. Well, I mean that fight's gonna be happening soon, September 10th. Hamzat versus Nate. So you're down for Hamzat Shemaev then?
Yes, I am.
I can't say I disagree. I definitely don't want. Oh man, I can't believe that Masvidal's opening his mouth, coming off of 3 losses. I definitely don't want. And I've seen.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I mean, if he doesn't say anything, he's not gonna get it. So
Sure, he's perfectly happy being public enemy number one. It's kind of like I don't know. I'm kind of half and half on it though, because you don't necessarily want to punish Leon Edwards because I'm sure Leon Edwards wants to beat him up more than anybody else. You know what I mean?
Right.
Leon would probably be happy to make that his first title defense. A guy who's going to give him a lot of ratings, that he's going to be able to make a lot of money from those pay-per-view points that he's going to
He
be
make
cut
way
in
more
on.
money off of Hamza Chimaev.
You probably would, but Masvidal, I think on paper would be a lot easier of a fight.
Oh,
So,
man,
you
yeah.
know.
And that's why Usman had took 2 of those fights
Mm.
because he fucking knew it was easier. And Usman and Kobe Covington
Usman's been
are the
chasing the bag for a
reason.
little while now.
Yeah, they're the or not Usman, but Kobe Covington and Usman, and Masvidal and Usman. For fucking that just fucking there's a fucking logjam of fucking killers, and they did it to themselves now.
Yeah.
So Usman is he's gonna want to take time off. I guarantee you.
Mm-hmm.
You get knocked out like that, they say you need at least 5 or 6 months
Mm-hmm.
just to be ready to train again, clear headed and okay. He's always he's always injured. You know what I'm saying? He's carrying these wild ass injuries.
Right.
He was pretty active. I mean, albeit against fucking you know the two the two biggest slapdick WWE type fighters in the
Mm-hmm.
game.
Mm-hmm.
Back to like, why do they both got fucking rematches
Right.
championship? They shouldn't have. So that's on you, Kamaru. That's your bad, dog. If you would have fucking, you would have taken. Well, I mean, this isn't going to be a shit on Kamaru Usman thing because he was active as fuck, and as active
Mm-hmm.
as any,
True.
a lot, especially a lot more active than fucking Tyron Woodley or guys that had held the belt before. So you know,
Yeah, he
it
fought 3 times in 2021, which is, I mean,
yeah,
that's impressive. He took a little bit of time after this first fight with Colby Covington, but that was an all out war.
that was.
So that was in December of 2019, and he didn't come back till July of 2020 to fight Masvidal. So I mean, I can't blame him after that because that first Colby Covington fight is an all time great.
Yeah, and you know you just don't want to. You just don't want to see, and that when I saw that, and it's like you're gonna fight fucking. But I don't think I think Edwards is way too self aware to
Mm-hmm.
take that fight or to be serious about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he'll mention it. He would want to mention it, like, "Oh yeah, this fucking bitch fucking slapped me backstage," or
Right.
however he's gonna spin that. Um,
He's already
you
pretty
know,
much he has actually spoken on it already, and he did
yeah.
say
Was it on with Helwani? Did he say
I
something about it?
I didn't see where he said it. It came up on Instagram for me and from one of the pages as a screen
Mm-hmm.
cap. But he pretty much said like, "Hey, I'll fight you, but get a win." So
Yeah,
I mean that's
and
all.
he's not going to, and Jorge's not going to. So he basically said like, "Yeah, I'll fight you if you win." That's like, hey God, if you want me to eat this pie, make no sign at all. Okay, it will be done. Like it's pretty much he knows what the
Yeah.
fuck he's doing by saying that.
If the path to a title shot for George Masvidal goes through Gilbert Burns, he's not getting a title
It's
shot.
done.
No.
Yeah, and ooh man, Gilbert Burns and Leon Edwards, man,
And
that's
Gilbert
crazy.
and Gilbert's he's calling. He's waiting for that George Masvidal fight. But I think he said he'd be open to fighting. I believe it was Jeff Neal who mentioned Gilbert Burns' name after Jeff Neal's recent win. I'm not sure there's a lot of options. But yeah, there's dudes up and down this division that I'm sure. I just realized I was trying to look like where the fuck are some of the names I'm looking for. I thought I was looking at the welterweight rankings, and I realized I was looking at Usman's record, like the fights that he's
I mean,
and
just
I was
as
like,
good,
where's
really.
Shavkat? I don't see
Yeah,
Shavkat.
the audacity of these people.
So yeah, there's Jeff Neal. I was wondering where he was. I'd like to imagine that as soon.
You need to call him Jeff Hands of Steel Neil
Okay,
from now on, sir.
I was imagining that as soon as Leon Edwards landed that head kick, that somewhere Shavkat Rachmanov like wasn't even watching the fights. He was probably skinning an animal alive somewhere in
He just
Kazakhstan,
turned.
and he just like he sensed something different in the air, and he
Yeah.
like looks up and starts to smell the air. There's guys in this division, and of course Shimaev too, that are gonna be hungry. I don't know. I think this makes
I
welterweight
imagine
really
he's like
exciting
that
for me.
Beastmaster movie where he transformed from an eagle and was just like, wow, and then he's just like there. He's like, whoa, what the fuck? Remember that movie, Beastmaster?
I
Isn't
can't
that what it was called?
I can't say that I do.
Oh, okay.
Nah, man, you're not ringing any
Maybe I'm
bells.
reaching, huh?
Let's see what else is fun in this welterweight division. Sean Brady's got Bilal Muhammad. And that's it. Yeah, most of the top
They're saying
10
Wonder Boy
isn't
and
booked.
Shavkat, right?
Wonder Boy and
So
Shavkat I saw was mentioned. They're targeting that, but as of right now, it's nothing official. And that's a tough fight for Wonder Boy, man. Like, come on, like. Wonder Boy should be fighting Tony Ferguson. We'll mention that too right now. We'll talk about that since
yeah, but I mean,
Tony Ferguson's confirmed to be fighting the
we do
Leech.
it both ways. We do it both ways because if we're gonna take the Masvidal doesn't deserve it,
Mm-hmm.
and then say like, hey, don't do that to Wonder Boy. You really can't
Uh
do
huh.
the two. Can't keep the. I mean, in my eyes, because
Mm-hmm.
Wonder Boy's been lingering around, and like, what do you want to do? That's his job. You know what I mean? You don't be a firefighter and just be like, oh, I just want to get that cat out of the tree. Like, I didn't come here for the fucking school fire, guys. You know
Uh huh.
what are we talking about here?
I mean I don't have I don't mean to be like to put up my fucking protect Wonder Boy at all costs guard up or anything because
Mm-hmm.
I don't have like a soft boy for Stephen Thompson necessarily, but I do feel like he's a guy who always tends to step up and fight the hard fights, and he gets rewarded with more hard fights. So,
Yeah.
but also, nah, never mind. That's pretty much it. As a Shavkat Rachmanov fan, I say fuck it, we take those because that should be a pretty easy fight for him, and that will be a nice big splash into the top 10 of the division because at least on Topology he's sitting at number 11. So yeah, I mean it makes sense that hey
Yeah.
they're all fucking fighters at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
I
They
don't know.
fight in the cage. They don't.
Yeah, fuck it, just bleed, give us blood. Speaking of blood, let's move on to the co-main event where we saw Luke Rockhold come up short to Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa cements himself as the premier Giga Chad of the UFC, at least at the middleweight division. And he takes Luke Rockhold to the judge's decision and gets a unanimous decision, by the way, which I think, I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised if it was a split decision.
He would. Yeah. Of course.
Of
Of
course, I
course he
wouldn't
would.
have. It was an exciting fight.
Shocker.
Luke Rockhold doesn't manage to retire without doing something fucking weird. Because in the
Yeah.
very end of the fight, in the last like 10 or so
He
seconds,
is so
he goes and
weird.
goes and smears all of his blood all over Paulo Costa's face, and then goes on in his retirement speech to go and smear blood all over Joe Rogan's white shirt and everything. And it's like, dude, like get a grip. Uh,
Fine.
I thought Luke Rockhold looked about as good as I would have expected. I picked Luke Rockhold. I'm not surprised he lost. He should have lost that fight. Paulo Costa really put the beating to him, and he was wearing it. Luke Rockhold was wearing it on his face by the end of that fight. But I think he looked better than a lot of people were giving him credit for. I do think that if the fight wasn't at elevation, he probably would have had a little bit better of a performance.
But so
I
would
think
Paulo
that
Costa have to fight at elevation, and Luke Rockhold wouldn't get to fight at
no,
elevation?
because the next thing I was going to say too was obviously there's the issue with his nose being broken. So that was a compounding issue. And Paulo Costa did that to him. It's not like his nose just randomly broke on its own. I'm giving Paulo Costa credit here, but a lot of people thought Paulo Costa was going to come out here. And a lot of people have a misconception about the kind of power that Paulo Costa has, but a lot of people really thought that he was going to just like knock Luke senseless. And that didn't
He
happen.
did make him cry. He socked him. Luke turned his back and started crying. I would rather get knocked the fuck out than get socked, turn, and then make a face like I want to just fucking cry
I
on
think
camera.
I think that face was, dear God, I'm fucking tired. I don't think he certainly wasn't crying.
Yeah,
I mean, if we're
that's it for me, boys.
yeah,
That's it for me.
yeah, if we're gonna
Fair
fucking
enough.
bag
Fair enough.
on Dean Thomas for saying Leon Edwards was broken, I mean, it's a maybe it's not a bridge too far to say Luke Rockhold was crying in the middle of the fight. He was
Yeah.
certainly crying after the fight.
Right.
What did you think about Paulo Costa's performance overall? Was there anything lacking? Were you a little concerned about how hittable he was, or do you just
I
chalk it up
mean,
to?
he's been a little inactive, you know. His grappling, you know, against credit to Marvin Vittori's, very good. You know, he just didn't look like he could have stopped a takedown or any type of again in that fight to save his fucking life.
Mhm.
And he had some really, albeit against a washed ass Luke Rockhold,
Mm-hmm.
he did have some really, he stuffed some takedowns, some shitty takedown attempts, you know, coming from me who's never wrestled before, but he I mean he did pretty well, and I mean he was on the ground. He had Luke Rockhold on him, and he was able to get out of there multiple times. So
Mm-hmm.
mm, I think he looked pretty good, and for as inactive as he's been, I mean, we talked about in the last one, he was surprisingly inactive. To me, I thought he had fought a lot more than he had. Um, but I guess like cause he was having cosmetic surgery or something, they were saying that
He got
fix
the
his
hair plugs at
hairline,
one
hair
point.
plugs,
Yeah.
shit, Jesus Christ, and so I mean, for someone who hasn't fought as much as he had, and credit to Luke Rockhold, who looked a lot better than he's looked in in a long, long time, striking wise anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I thought it was pretty much after seeing how bad when I saw how bad the elevation affected fighters that weren't as fucking jacked as Paulo Costa was, for him to go that entire fight and to not just completely gas out and just want to and just like lay down and die was it, I think that was another thing too. Like, man, he was in pretty good shape. So
Agreed. By that time and the card, after realizing what we were dealing with in terms of the
Mhm.
elevation, I was surprised Paulo Costa didn't look worse.
Of all the fighters,
Yeah.
yeah, he would have been the guy that you would have been like, ooh, that's not good.
Yeah.
All the
Close second.
AKA fighters from like the golden era are out of the UFC now.
They're all.
Habib, Kane, DC, Luke Rockhold, they're gone. I mean Makachev, but he's kind of like I don't know,
He's almost like,
trying to
yeah, he's
make
kind of
it.
Team Khabib, I guess you could
Yeah,
say.
he's
Yeah.
more of like a Dagestani. He's more of a Abdul Manap
Mm-hmm.
fucking fighter than a crazy Bob Cook fighter.
Yeah. Paulo Costa, it seems it sounds like it's a little up in the air as to whether or not this was the last fight on his contract. He mentioned it in the post fight presser, and it sounded like he wasn't even sure himself. Otherwise, I mean, I guess if he was sure, we would know. He said all of the sound bites you would expect. Open to fighting one of the Paul brothers. Open
He's
to
gonna he's gonna look
negotiating.
like fucking OG Ronnie Coleman in one championship. He's gonna show up like fucking Jay Cutler, dude, just like 100%. You know, fuck with me, 100%. He's just gonna be
Yeah.
fucking jacked, like insane. I
If
would love to see Paulo Costa in one championship.
so,
Kickboxing,
if you were
yeah,
managing his career, that's where you would send him.
I would send him there. I
Mm-hmm.
would be just because they're going to undercut him everywhere he goes in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
He has their version of the Gestapo SS on him, which is USADA, where you can be, in my opinion, and here's conspiracy, Brandon, is where if you kind of wrong the UFC, they're going to throw their dogs on you.
Mm-hmm.
And USADA is their dog. And so having to draw blood at 7 in the morning on a weight cut day he's going to see a lot more of that kind of shit.
Well, funny
Whereas,
you mentioned that, and I'm sorry to cut you off,
no,
but
go right ahead,
Dana
please.
did already say it sounds like Dana's playing ball because he came out
Yeah.
and said like publicly that no, I told Paulo Costa after that pre-fight press conference in his ear that like that's never going to happen again. So Dana's literally, if we hold Dana to his word, because
Which is gold.
we all know Dana's like fucking
It's pure gold.
yeah airproof. That shouldn't be an issue anymore, and I would
Oh,
hope.
well, then I'm fine then. Okay. Oh, my bad.
Yeah, stay in the UFC, Paulo Costa.
Yeah.
No,
No,
sorry,
I
I
would
didn't
love
mean
to
to.
see Paulo Costa fight Rob Whitaker. I would love to see that. That would be, if Whitaker can beat Vittori, which he probably will, Paulo Costa versus Robert Whitaker would be something I would love to watch.
It certainly lines up. Paulo Costa sitting at least on Topology, number 10 in the division. And Whitaker still at number 2, but Whitaker just kind of playing that role of being a guy who's already came up short against the champion twice. And he has a date scheduled with Marvin Vittori for September 3rd,
Right.
which I actually forgot about that fight.
And that's close. And,
It's right around the corner.
Costa's going to need some time. And, we know Rob's going to need time. Or like would Costa and Till be a bad fight?
Costa and Till would be a
I think that'd be a
fantastic fight.
fucking fantastic fight because Nobody's fucking wrestling. Like, leave the fucking knee wraps at home for that one, boys, because shit's gonna get wild.
Also, kind of a winnable fight for Till, I think.
Right? Oh
and,
yeah.
and I'm not like a fucking a Till and like a big Darren Till believer or anything like that. Like, he's 1-5 since 2018, so
I think
I know
Costa
what
could
we
beat
got
him,
with
though.
Darren Till. But yeah, I would still say Costa should be the comfortable favorite.
Right.
But Darren Till has there's marketability there and enough of a skill set to make it interesting for sure.
Yeah.
Here's what I forgot to ask you before we move on or get too further into Paulo Costa. Luke Rockhold, do you really believe he's going to stay retired? Because he's been retired before and came back. Or do you think
I
this
don't
is
give
actually it
a,
for
I
him?
don't give a fuck.
You just literally don't care.
Yeah, I literally don't care. I didn't care before this. I was never, see, that's the weird thing. As into UFC as into mixed martial arts, I'm not gonna sit here and like shit on this man's legacy, but I will say I just never cared
Legacy.
for him. And
Mhm.
I was like a big AK, like Cain Velasquez was like everything to me at one point. That was like, oh man, and then he trains with them. I like Jake Shields. How weird that was. I had an appreciation for Jake Shields in Strike Force. Nick Diaz, all those guys, Nick and Nate, and Rockhold's kind of like is that whole
Gilbert
part of that
Melendez.
crew.
Uh,
Yeah, Gil Melendez was a fucking animal. Um, but I just never, and even when he was champ, I just never saw. I just didn't see it. You know what I'm saying? I
right.
just never really I just don't see it. And it's not that I don't think he's not an amazing athlete. He's not that he's not an amazing fighter. He's an amazing grappler. Fucking smolderingly handsome. Uh, just I don't care for that type of personality. I guess is
Mhm.
what I'm saying.
Right.
His personality kind of like it's grating, to
Mhm.
on someone like me, I guess, which doesn't make me right. It's just my personal opinion of Luke Rockhold.
Mhm. No, I think in our chat you hit the nail on the head where he'd make a perfect long-term guest for the fighter and the kid because like,
Yeah,
oh,
fighter and the kid.
you're absolutely
Welcome
right.
to it.
That's
Yeah,
that's his people for sure.
yeah,
Um, I to answer my own question, I do believe that he's really going to stay retired. The way that he that he announced his retirement, it felt more like I'm not necessarily tired of the fighting part of showing up and getting in the cage and fighting another man. I'm tired of the training camps. That's
yeah.
that's kind of what it sounded like to me. I was a little bit sad that because I was never really a big Luke Rockhold fan either at all.
Hmm.
He beat too many of my heroes at one point, like Lyoto Machida. I was like, dude, who the fuck is this guy? I wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily on my radar. I was excited for the potential like trilogy of fights that could have happened with him and Chris Weidman because that looked like
Yeah.
at least for
Wow.
both of them being
I had memory hold that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but nothing else really. But right now, the way that he looked against Paulo Costa and trying to think like how much better he might look without a broken nose and not at elevation, I'm looking at this middleweight division and thinking like I wouldn't mind seeing Luke Rockhold fight a lot of these guys. I would love to see Luke Rockhold fight Darren Till. I'd love to see him fight Vettori, Sean Strickland. Depending on who loses
Sean
between,
Strickland and Costa would be nice too.
that'd be a cool fight, and then that would really be an entertaining one as far as like their exchanges on social media
Oh
too. Like that would
yeah.
be wild. I think like if he wanted to stick around, there's interesting fights there for him. Even further down the division, Dricus Duplessis, Still Knox, like him versus
He
that's
does
another
not
Giga
want
Chad versus
he
Giga
does
Chad fight.
not want Luke Rockhold. Yeah, that's why he retired, dude. That name right there is why he retired. I won't. So now you just cemented it for me.
These two
I'm
wild.
probably yeah. No one wants to fight Dricus Duplessis, let alone someone like who has the chin that Nate Rockhold does.
Dricus was looking pretty wild in his last fight, and he was looking almost like I don't know, like he still kept moving, like he didn't necessarily slow down, but he looked so gassed, like
Yeah,
towards the end of the first round in his previous fight. I think Luke Rockhold, stayed standing if he didn't get his nose broken again. And surely Dricus can knock him out and would be the
Yeah.
favorite. But yeah, man, I maybe I'm overrating Luke Rockhold's stand up lately, but I think that there's a potential path for him to kind of pick him apart a little bit.
I think maybe the thing is that Luke Rockhold, you can't, facts are facts, and he was a champion in two different promotions, two different high level promotions. He's beaten all timers.
Jack Ray,
So
Tim Kennedy.
yeah, he's beaten some of the best. So, and that's all respect. That was a different version of him, with all due respect. And you say this with respect, um, but if you take,
With all due
I don't,
respect.
with all due respect, baby girl, um, if you take, let's just take like a, maybe like, I'm trying to think of like a basketball version of Luke Rockhold. I don't know, like a Tracy McGrady, or like one of these guys who's just like flashy, was awesome, but just was never quite there. And you put them on a basketball court right now, even in an NBA game, they're gonna look good in because that's fucking Tracy McGrady. That's just those guys are just there. It's in them to do that. And if you put them on that stage, I never saw not one thing. Even when he kicked that awesome ass kick, he had that nice punch. I didn't that nice left. I didn't. I never felt like, yo, he's gonna fucking win. I never. As crazy as DC was screaming, oh my god, look at that kick.
Right.
I was never like, oh shit, he could actually win this. There was not one point in that entire fight, from the time that they signed the fight to the time he was crying like a bitch retiring, did I think that he had any chance or any fucking chance to win that fight. None. And he played it out and he fought it. I didn't see. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just didn't see it. And Paulo Costa is a decent chin, and he's a good fucking fighter. I mean, it's hard to. I mean, fuck, Israel Adesanya fucking took his soul that night. That's just really what it was. He was fucking. Before that Israel Adesanya fight, he was fucking. And I know I'm talking to someone who thought the same thing. He looked fucking like he could legit contend for a title.
Oh, I didn't think he had a shot against Israel
No,
Adesanya.
no,
No,
against Izzy, no, no, no.
no.
But I mean, the lead up going in,
Oh,
no one thought he was going to beat Israel Adesanya. No one did.
I would.
Especially that point
Uh-huh.
where Israel Adesanya was on copious amounts of steroids in that fight. So there was no chance. But the way he looked, like ascending into that match, he looked amazing. He was the eraser. He was a fucking eraser.
Right. Yeah, Luke Rockhold rocked him a few times. You didn't see that? You didn't see him?
No, he rocked him, but did you think he was going to win? Like, what was he going to do?
I did think that there could have been a moment when Paulo Costa threw an errant kick and ended up losing his footing and fell down. And I'm like, here it is, Chris Weidman all over again. And
But then he like tossed Rockhold off of him.
Luke dove on him and it got tossed off. I'm just saying what I saw.
Yeah,
I know.
no, and that's fair, And see, I think we're both coming from it was like, and I was so surprised when you were like, I think Luke Rockhold wins. That was like since you and I have been doing this, that was the one fucking thing that surprised. I thought we were both gonna like, ha.
Paulo Costa's he's a bad fighter. He's not good. He's really not. He has brawn, and that's not a whole lot else. I mean, he throws a lot of punches to the body, which I give him credit for because not a lot of people do in MMA. So that's something kind of impressive. But he's a physique, and he has all right power. He's like actually surprisingly not as much power as you would expect, like considering what he looks like. And I think the jury's out on whether or not he has good game plans, because I mean he has a good he has a 14-2 record for a reason. Like, he's obviously knows what to do to get like a win with the tools that he has. But I just think that he's just so hittable. I think he's a guy who's going to keep having success because of how bad middleweight is. But I've definitely slammed.
I mean, I'm not finding any holes in your logic right here. You know what I mean? I'm not going to die on the Paulo Costa as the next fucking, I don't know, anyone really. I'm just saying, like, I think that he's a lot better fighter than I think maybe. I think we made a joke about it, and I just want to take a chance or take this chance to apologize for something that I said about the closeted gay man that boned him out in a fight that he had. But I think that really fucks with someone, and that really perception, especially in perception where it's so storyline driven of a sport as MMA is. Let's just face it, like fucking uh, uh, Paredes getting a title shot because of a fucking storyline, not because of anything he's done in the octagon so far. And so when people see what happened between him and Israel Adesanya, they kind of the perception of Paulo Costa is like shit. That guy's fucking he's shitty. He sucks, and I'm just not sure he's. I don't think he sucks. I don't think he's a bad fighter. I wouldn't go as far as to say he's just a bad fighter. I don't think so. I mean, 14-2 at the highest levels of mixed martial arts it's pretty good.
I think Paulo Costa, I'll give him credit. I think he's one of the best fighters at middleweight division as far as marketing himself.
Yeah.
The guy is a meme king, and he said it himself. He loves this meme shit. He literally said those words in the post-fight presser. And for that reason, I think he is one of the better fighters in the division because straight up nobody else at middleweight other than, say, Sean Strickland is like able to kind of market themselves and give themselves opportunities that they certainly wouldn't get just based off of their in-ring performances. Paulo Costa is going to have a future, like whether I think he's a bad fighter or not, he's going to be in the discussion with legitimately good fighters and finding him in matches and getting paid handsomely for it. So yeah. And I mean, this is still a big win. I think this raises his stock definitely because I think
it was a very weird matchup. I've heard that across the board almost, as far as like analysts, like some said good, bad. I always just thought that was a random one.
It did come out of nowhere. Yeah. I think everybody, like when we were talking about it last week in the breakdown, I was talking about how I was kind of surprised that no one really seemed to be talking about it very much, and that both guys weren't really going at each other on social media very much. And then it felt like literally as soon as I said that, like the very next day, Luke Rockhold's like going scorched earth on the UFC and talking all of his bit and stuff like that. And then Paulo Costa was doing his thing too. So it kind of happened. They did their work. They sold. They did their part to help sell the pay-per-view, but it didn't really start until like boom, like right the week of.
Yeah.
That's when they really fired up the promotional machine that is the UFC on a numbered pay-per-view fight week.
Right.
Do you want to move on to the bantamweight fight, Merab versus Aldo? No, don't even want to talk about it. Of course, you don't want to talk about the one that I called.
No, you called it correctly. But my teeth, my jaw is just like it sores. I've never I was just grinding my teeth that entire fucking fight, and there was so many like we're talking about the knees, right? You saw. Tell me you didn't see some of those wicked ass fucking knee-jerk reaction. Like,
the reaction was there. Yeah, he was waiting for that takedown.
He was waiting to get it. He was thinking about it.
Yeah.
And what did Rob go like 0 for 16, 0 for 17 on fucking takedowns?
That's
amazing. He should get a belt for that.
Legendary. I wanted to ask you about that specifically. So pretend you didn't watch the fight. You missed it. Right. You don't even know what happened at all. And I told you, hey, Jose Aldo defended against 16 takedowns, or Merab attempted 16 takedowns, didn't get a single one against Aldo. What in you how do you think the fight would have looked based off that stat alone?
That Aldo won by split decision, probably.
Oh, so you would have thought it would have been pretty close because you figured,
Merab would have came out swinging.
So this is like something I didn't expect because I thought to myself, okay, well, I mean, I was picking Merab, so I thought he's going to get at least a couple of those takedowns. If you would have told me that Aldo defended all 16 and didn't get taken down once, I would have thought, oh, well, then Aldo handled business then.
Right.
But I didn't account for the possibility that Merab, in looking for those takedowns, was also going to be wall installing and putting Aldo on the cage.
That was rough to watch, man.
Yeah, because
both of them, it just made me sad because you had talked to me about how we had talked about that fight and what our takes on it, and I think our takes were correct. And it was just disappointing because it was one of those ones where, and then I had heard people talking about this card. Friends of mine, they were just like, the only good fight I want to watch is Paulo Costa and Luke Rockhold. That's the only one I want to see.
Yeah.
That's the only one worth fucking watching. And yeah, and it's just like, what, dude? There's like literal art that's gonna happen before it, and then it just wasn't. So I was just like, damn, dude.
Although both the guys very clearly affected by the altitude, because
Yeah.
I mean we've seen Aldo slow down before. We know what he is now, and we know that at this point in his career he does have to kind of he can't just empty the tank.
Right.
If he does, he has to be confident that he's going to get the finish, because Aldo in 5-round fights, which is what we're used to seeing him in, he does fade later in the rounds, late in the fourth,
Right.
getting into the fifth. But here we saw that by round 2 he was just not throwing, and so easily getting backed up. And we saw a guy who is a fucking cardio machine in Merab also by round 3. I mean, impressively still deciding like, okay, fuck it, this round I'm tired of wrestling, I'm gonna start throwing.
Right.
But also slowed down a lot. So yeah, it was disappointing, because this was gonna be a fight that was really like a legend versus what I consider to be an elite prospect, and I was really hoping that regardless of the outcome, both guys would end up leaving it all in the cage, and I think they left it all in a place that's a little bit more closer to the ocean.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't it. Aldo wasn't throwing, and if the
Tough one, man.
if the rumors are true about what Merab mentioned on Ariel Helwani's show, that after the fight, that what Aldo was telling him in the ring was that this was going to be his last fight, then Aldo may very well be retired also, along with Luke Rockhold, although this is unannounced. Do you want to hear that he's changed his decision? Do you think it's kind of fucked up of Merab to go and mention that before Aldo officially comes out and says it? Or, I mean, it's fair game. I guess
The
they
first time
asked
I'll
him.
agree with you on anything is Dominic Cruz and Jose Aldo. I'm like praying for that now. That's something I didn't want to see, but I'm just like praying that happens now, because I can't see Jose Aldo go out like that, man.
Yeah, not in that kind of a fight. I do hope he changes his mind. And you know what? I had already forgot that I predicted, or not predicted, that I said that I would want that fight if Aldo comes
Yeah.
up short here. So, yes, thank you for reminding me. I do hope that fight
Yeah.
happens. If not, if he does retire, so many fighters in this sport would kill for the career that Jose Aldo had. And he's beloved by many, and I can't, these aren't my words. I heard somebody else say that, but they're fucking spot on. I believe it was Jed Meshew from MMAfighting.com. He said Jose Aldo is your favorite fighter's favorite fighter.
Yeah.
And that is true as fuck. Like I think everybody across the sport, whether they're booked like to fight him or not, respect the fuck out of Jose Aldo. And 2022 is just turning out to be the year, man, of retirements. Like, they just don't stop coming. Right now it's Aldo, possibly, all but confirmed. Luke Rockhold, a few cards ago, Nina Nunes, Rory McDonald, Uriah Hall, Cowboy Cerrone, Joanna, Marlon Moraes, Zabit Magomed-Sharapov, and those are just the ones that I could remember earlier that I made a note about. But yeah, man, just another reminder, I guess, that someday there will be a time when none of the fighters who were competing in this sport when we started watching it will be competing anymore. And it happens gradually. We certainly won't know it. It's not like we'll get a notification on our
Ortiz is
phone.
booked, right? For something.
Who?
Tito Ortiz is booked, right?
Tito. Oh, I remember the last thing I saw. The last
As
thing I
long
saw
as
was that
Tito holds on.
I think Tito was trying to throw his name in the mix to try and fight a Paul brother at one point, like recently in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Tito's always doing something desperate.
Isn't it Fedor's fighting somebody too, right? Pretty soon. Isn't he fighting like Rampage or something like that?
Let me look it up. Emelianenko Topology. Fyodor is not booked. It's got nothing coming up. Sitting pretty with a record of 40-6. So yeah, I mean, I guess I don't have a whole lot else to say about the fight itself between Marab and Aldo, but we can look at the rankings for bantamweight and kind of talk about how things might play out for Marab. He didn't really do himself any favors. It wasn't an impressive win over Aldo, to say the least. And then afterwards, in the cage with the champion Aljamain Sterling standing there, he was vague. To me, listening to it in the moment, it sounded like he said no, like I won't fight Aljamain Sterling. Sorry, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
But then reports I'm hearing from other people is that he just kind of didn't really specify if he would fight him or not. To me, that's as good as a no. I don't
Yeah.
think that they're going to fight. They are close, like practically like family. And Marab said it himself, like when he was looking for a camp or a gym, like when he first came to the States, like they brought him in like family. So it's not going to happen. I would say for me right now, I would like to see Marab fight the loser of Peter Yan.
Askara. Oh.
I was going to say Peter Yan or Sugar Sean O'Malley, or the winner, I guess. But I kind of figure, if Sugar Sean wins, they're going to give Sugar Sean a title shot.
The title shot.
Yeah. So in that case, it would have to be the loser, because I think a fight between Peter Yan and Merab Dvalishvili will be amazing. If it's between, I don't know, there's Cheeto Vera, obviously. I think Merab would be smart to probably try and call out Cheeto Vera and get that fight going, because Cheeto's also going to have to be waiting to see the results between Sandhagen and Song Yadong, and then also Peter Yan, Sugar Sean. TJ Dillashaw already has his date with Aljamain Sterling. It's tough to kind of like predict and see what's going to play out with this division, but a lot of possibilities. I don't want to try to make any predictions, to be honest. It's tough. And
Yeah.
I don't know
That's one of the rougher ones to kind of match make at right now, as it is.
yeah, hard to make any predictions with that kind of performance from Merab. All right, let's move on down the card, and let's talk about where it all went wrong for us. Where I got so much egg on my face, because when I was doing the images for the breakdown, I had the audacity to not even put or include Marcin Tybura. I literally just threw up a flag of a photo of Alexander Romanov holding the Moldovan flag. He came out looking every bit as dominant as we would have expected in round one.
Was that a 10-8 round?
I scored it a 10-8.
If that's a 10-8 round, then it's a split decision or a draw, right? A draw.
I think it should have been a draw. Yeah.
I think so too.
But I'm okay with Marcin Tybura winning it, because I think that he really exceeded my expectations, because I don't know if I really went in on Marcin when we were breaking it down. No, we really didn't. We just ball washed Alexander Romanov, now that I remember.
I did. I admit it.
Yeah.
I will again.
Admit to what?
No, I admit to ball washing.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
I admit. I am also
still have the flavor in my
mouth. Romanov fights. It's not a flavor that I want out of my mouth, though. So it was embarrassing, but you know that the guy probably had a wild ass fucking flight over. Of anyone who doesn't fucking, now I'm gonna go ahead and backtrack and ball wash more. We saw him working out in a fucking parking lot with fucking shoes on.
Yeah.
In a gravel parking lot, because I don't know if that was out of necessity because he couldn't afford a gym at the time or what it was. But of any of the fighters who probably went through the greatest expense to get there, the greatest expense, to pay for travel and all that other stuff, and probably got there 3 or 4 days before. It was probably, but I mean, in all fairness, probably Tybura as well. So
yeah, Tybura coming from Poland, I mean, you kind of have to figure he's probably dealing with similar circumstances.
And I mean, that first round was like everything we said would happen. He looked like he was in a fucking tar pit. There was no way he was going to get up. It was that little thing that I said too, where it's like when he has someone down, it looks weird. The other guy trying to get up, it looks very weird when the other guy's trying to get up and he has him down. I think he just completely gassed. You can just see it, the way he was like that weird half-hearted showboating, the hugging at the end of the third round, the faking the low kick or trying to get as much time as he could possibly get to fucking, because he got kicked in the belly and he said he got kicked in the nuts, and then tried to take the whole fucking 5 minutes.
I forgot
So
about that.
it's like,
Yeah.
dude, you're gassed.
One
And
of
so, I
one of the
mean,
rare instances when the ref like will see it, and I don't even think it. I think that if you wanted to dig in, sorry to interrupt you, by the way.
no, please
Like
go.
if somebody really wanted to be a stickler or an official, because I don't believe that the referee actually consulted a replay for that. I think he gave him he
No,
said okay, yeah.
they said he looked at Herb Dean, and Herb Dean was watching the screen, and then did the, like,
Yes.
he's fucking lying.
Yeah. I think
It's
they
like,
just
oh,
they
okay.
replayed it up on the screens like they
Yeah.
would for the audience, and that's where Herb Dean saw it, and he was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, never mind." Yeah, it's funny. I think that's one of the only times in recent memory that I could remember a referee like redacting the nut shot timeout, or there's like, "Oh, never mind." Anyways, go on.
But a ton of credit to Marcin Tybura, and you're 100% right. Like, we didn't really give him the due, and I think it is, with all due respect, baby girl, with Marcin Tybura, if they were to fight, if they were fighting in Apex, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that fight goes a little like way different. And it just really sucks. I think it's a minor setback for a major comeback. I'm gonna go ahead and ride this guy's nuts until we just can't anymore.
Mhm.
I think that's good for a lot of heavyweight fighters to see that, or to get that Romanov isn't fast track, because if he would have taken that second round and just knocked him out,
Mhm.
they would have fast tracked him somehow up the rankings into, probably a fight he didn't deserve. Obviously now, hindsight shows he probably doesn't deserve higher fights, but he's gonna knock off another 3 fights, and then we're gonna forget about it.
Oh yeah, yeah. If he would have come up with the W, I think we probably would have been able to start looking forward to the Alexander Volkov fight, because Alexander just is like the gatekeeper for the heavyweight division, and Volkov's coming off of a win too, and that's a guy who just needs to be a one win, one loss kind of guy. So he's kind of due for it. Then obviously there's Sergey Pavlovich, Derek Lewis. He's just coming off of a knockout, so that'd be pretty fucking cruel. But he's also not scheduled to fight anybody. Yeah, no. With Marcin though, going into this fight, I noticed when Marcin was on a 5-fight winning streak in the UFC, like before he ran into Alexander Volkov, and I was kind of like, okay, do I want to kind of like get into this guy a little bit? Like, he's from KSW and Poland and stuff like that, and like there's a lot of
Marcin Tybura.
No, actually, he's from M1.
Marcin Tybura is a clean fucking name too. We're talking about that earlier, like Harry Huntsucker. Or
Yeah.
Which one would you rather introduce yourself as in the elevator? Like, oh hi, I'm Marcin Tybura, or would you rather say I'm Harry Huntsucker? Like, which one would you rather say?
For the
Marcin
joke,
Tybura.
for the joke,
For the
Harry
joke,
Harry
for the lulz.
Huntsucker. Ideally, neither. Both pretty bad names.
Harry Huntsucker does have a ring to it. Like, you're the third guy up at an open mic, and they're like, "Ladies and gentlemen, all the way."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then you're like, "Harry Huntsucker."
But like, I would have told you that, like, of all the good guys or underrated, overlooked fighters, like coming out of Poland and especially KSW, which is really big in Poland, and I think that's going to be a big time feeder league for the UFC for a long time moving forward. That Marcin Tybura wasn't exactly one of them. He was kind of just a guy, kind of just there, middle of the road heavyweight. But he put his hands together, and here's the thing. I know it's like something, it's kind of dumb to give him a lot of credit for this, but at heavyweight I do, is that he was throwing a lot of straight punches against Alexander Romanov, when he's just as big as Romanov, and it would have been understandable if he would have been just as gassed as Alexander Romanov. But after the beating that he took in round one to to kind of have the composure to say like, no, I'm going to put these straight fists on you. And that really helped because I think Romanov, being so gassed, was just unable to close that distance and just couldn't get inside and get his hands around Marcin Tybura. Because at that point, it was just like, dude, just stand still. Like, let me grab you and put you back down on the fucking floor. Yeah. And I think that Tybura made that read and said, like, okay, I need to really fucking jab this guy's face off because that's just going to stop him in his tracks. And it did. I don't know how tired Tybura was. I didn't watch any of his post-fight interviews or anything like that. But I think I'd be down for, if I'm looking at the heavyweight rankings again, for Tybura, I'm down for the same names that I mentioned: Pavlovich, Derek Lewis. He hasn't really got to cash in on the whole Derek Lewis thing. I think that'd be pretty cool moving forward, and then we'll see what happens with Romanov. We're certainly not going to stop ball washing him because not every fight is going to be at extreme elevation like that.
I'm not. I gotta. I made my bed, so. Mm-hmm. But I think
you called yourself the Lucy Pujilova
of blowing fighters from Moldova. Man, in the moment, dude, I was literally, in the moment, not even thinking. On the treadmill, I came up with that. So that's pretty good, dude. That's pretty good.
Did you watch the Sean Woodson-Luis Saldana fight that ended in a draw? A split draw?
No, I did not. That's one of the ones I was probably making steak.
Gotcha.
I was up and down on all the fights, like watching all of them, but I did not see. At least I don't remember that one.
Okay, no problem. And I will just say it was an interesting fight because Luis Saldana really shit the bed. He had Sean Woodson like dead to rights in round one, had knocked him down twice, and Sean Woodson just looked like he had the finishing touches, like just walk up to him and throw a little bit of ground and pound, and you would have been done. Instead, Luis Saldana taunts like an asshole both times,
right?
Thinking that I guess that he was going to get a walkaway KO, but the ref doesn't stop it. Tells him, hey, you got to keep going. So he walks up to Sean Woodson while he's like struggling to get back up to his feet. He's on his knees, and he blasts him in the face with a knee, which causes him to get a point taken away.
I did see this, and then he was like taunting off. Or sorry, I'm like trying to I'm trying to reenact it on an audio only podcast,
right?
And he was like taunting away. Yeah, I did see this. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was. Had a few. I did partake early on that afternoon.
Oh no, I don't blame you. Yeah,
I was in a fucking haze, and then I ate like a crazy amount of fucking red meat, and then it like brought me out of it. We thank God, right in time to watch my hero unceremoniously get held against the cage for 15 minutes.
So yeah, that's a lesson learned for Luis Saldana and for any other fighters watching that shit. Like, stop with this taunting bullshit. Like,
yeah,
dude, you're fighting on the prelims. If you got your man like dead to rights, take him out because
self-awareness. I think you're not style bender. Mm-hmm. You're not, because I from what I remember, like, well, yeah, he kind of did, but. And did look cringy though, because Stylebender looked super cringy doing that anime shit against Anderson Silva. Yeah.
Well, and now I remember, and actually I'm glad that you do kind of remember this fight because one little topic of discussion I wanted to touch on with you.
He should have said like, "Get the fuck," because he should have just took it and then took the win, fucking
Sean Woodson,
Funk Master style, right? Because it was an illegal knee. Just said I'm hurt, but They said like he looked at the ref and goes, "I'm ready, like let's do it." The ref was like, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, fuck it, let's fucking go, boys. Let's do it then."
Yeah. So here's the thing: Sean Woodson was knocked out. To my eyes, I saw it and I'm like, hold on, yeah. I'm like, oh shit, like he hit him with an illegal knee. Oh fucking, because Saldana followed up with some punches.
Clean ass fucking Pride FC knee.
Oh yeah, Which, by the way. Let's just legalize the
Let's just do that, huh? Yeah.
We're not asking for soccer kicks, but come on.
Yeah. you're telling me that what Khalil Roundtree does to guys when they're in that position is any less fucking
Oh,
brutal than that knee?
the oblique
Please.
kick, just tearing 3 ligaments. Come on,
Yeah.
no. But to my eyes, I saw Sean Woodson go limp, and then
No, he
the ref
did.
stops
Yeah.
it. Luis Saldana starts to celebrate, has an adrenaline dump because he thinks the ref is stopping the fight because he thinks he won, and the ref goes, "No, like that was an illegal knee. We're processing this and all that." Takes a point. Sean Woodson, credit to him, man. He got back up to his feet and he's like, "Yo, what's up? Ready to go? Let's go. We're doing this."
Bitch.
And
I hear no fucking belt.
exactly, and the ref is just like, "Well, okay," and I'm like, whoa, I'm on my feet, like thinking, like, whoa, another official needs to come in here and stop this, right? Because, like, illegal or not, this man was out cold. You can't just be like, okay, continue the fight. No,
His
this is
arm was, if I can remember it right, like his left arm was like pinned behind him, and he was like trying to get it back from out underneath him.
I just realized I was about to start trying to like mimic his position.
Yeah,
too on the audio on the
you're
podcast.
doing it too.
But yeah, I'm just
I'm
like,
the worst at that.
this is a concussed fighter, and they let
Yeah.
it go. And I mean, dude fought to a draw, so it's tough to make the argument because someone's going to look at it and be like, well, he fought to a draw, and like, what did he get out of it? Fucking nothing. He got the same amount he would have got if he would. No, he actually got less because he would have got his win bonus if he would have taken the DQ. Instead, he fights to a draw. It turns out to be a nothing fight for both men. Yeah, really, really, really risky one. I'm glad nothing bad happened there because
Some clown ass shit happened on this card, man.
oh yeah, and also too, like another reason why I kind of had to just eat it with the whole concern about Sean Woodson is like, to be fair, because most guys who, if they're in that situation, they get like hella rocked, and then the ref decides to let them keep fighting. Well, you're gonna see what's gonna happen. They're rocked. They're messed up for a reason. They're probably gonna get like thrown into the wood chipper. But he fought through it, man. So I don't know, but weird shit. Pretty bad. Pretty bad.
Was somewhere like, oh, you give him a fucking chance.
Pretty bad reffing across the board, to be honest.
All the way. And then Beltran with that whole like, I don't want. You're not gonna be none of this shit. And I was like, dude, what is your fucking problem?
How about Beltran addressing Paulo Costa in Spanish?
Yeah, and he's fucking. Hey, guy, they're both love languages, huh? But Jesus Christ, that was hilarious. And then you messaged me that, and I was literally laughing. I go, did he just talk to him in Spanish? And then, but Costa was like shaking his head, like hair plugs flowing, like, yeah, okay.
And my buddy Mike's dad, because I was watching at Mike's house, he was like, "Oh well, they can understand some of it. They can understand some of the words." I'm like, just don't attempt. Like he clearly understands a lot of English too, and I'm pretty sure Beltran speaks English.
That would be, but Buddy would be like, "Yeah, well, he knew."
Yeah, like I guess they're close enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to all of the fouls and the fence grabbing in the main event too. If at any point a referee needs to be slapping a fighter's hand off of the cage, you need to just take a fucking point. It'll probably never happen, but I really want to see them experiment with just immediate point deductions for certain fouls.
Light. No, like a light goes off on the thing, and they're like, well, why is that light? And then they go, oh, fucking fingers on the fence. So and then you see it real time, like point gone, and you're just like, okay. Because here, how about this? How about fucking Usman grabbing every single fucking time, grabbing the best wrestler in MMA, right? Is grabbing the fence to get not taken down by a fucking British kickboxer.
Right. And
then Edwards does it once, and they give Usman top control on they give him the favorable position after one fucking infraction.
The refs are too big of cowards to take a point away because they don't want to influence the fight that much. And it's like, because it's only 3 rounds, so you take a point away, you're in most cases, you as the ref in that instance are deciding that fighter lost that round. And it's like it's a big difference maker, but that's why the fighters need to train to not do that shit. That's that's what gets me the most annoying.
Poke Usman in the eye.
Right. And I mean, Edwards poked Bilal Muhammad in the eye pretty fucking ugly too. That, I mean, and with Edwards you can see, because he's clearly trying to post on a fighter's face. And then even with the
Right.
Bilal one,
No, you're
it
right.
actually was kind of like a punch because I remember his finger was like hooked. We talked about it in the last episode. It was like
Yeah.
hooked down into his bottom
In his
eyelid.
eyeball, yeah.
But my thing is, and I think I've talked about it on the show before. It's just like if fighters understand going into a fight that an eye poke means I'm automatically going to lose a point, no discussion about it. Like just that's it. They will train
They will,
to
yeah,
keep
train
their
to not
hands
do it.
closed.
Yes, good point, man. That's
They
it. You have made that point. I hope you say it every single fucking. And then this is coming from John Jones, nut swinger, Brandon Anaya, will tell you that needs to happen. You
yes,
you fucking poke a guy in the eye, it's just a point. I'm sorry, that sucks, but it's the rules. And then once it is, you're exactly, dude. I couldn't agree with you on anything more. If they know that's just like they should know that the elbows, the you can't do
the
this, you
12 to
can't,
6 elbow. Yeah,
12 to 6.
there's a
Just
reason. There's a reason the 12 to 6
yeah,
elbow doesn't never gets thrown
you
by
don't see it.
accident
Yeah,
because they know it's
yeah,
illegal and so they don't. It's literally out of the
yeah,
repertoire. Like if you walked into an MMA gym and everyone was fucking drilling 12 to 6 elbows, you're in another dimension. That
yeah.
it's like what the fuck is going on here?
You just got back from Tokyo, huh?
Yeah,
Get the, this is America here.
I mean I could still see keeping warnings for inadvertent nut shots because especially with kicks because a kick that you threw with all the intention in the world to kick in the leg, a low like a leg kick, can very easily turn into a nut shot because you can't really control the way your opponent moves. You know, you were aiming for the inner thigh and then they shift or try to cut a corner and suddenly, you know, where their inner thigh was is now their groin. And that happens for sure. So, I mean, I don't necessarily want to see that happen immediately for nut shots because there's a lot more variables. But I mean, certainly, if you throw multiple nut shots, like by the second one, it's like okay, we're not leaving this to chance anymore. But yeah, so many other things like we were talking about the fence grabs. Fighters can train to not grab the fence. You like they already know it's against the rules. They're told it's against the rules backstage before they even walk into the cage. They
Ain't gonna
get
be none of this shit.
they get multiple warnings before it ever even happens in the cage. So it's tough. We got to clean this sport up, me and you, Brandon.
Yeah,
All it's
somehow.
going to take is a little bit of elbow grease.
Yeah,
Me and you, the Tachi Palace boys.
the Tachi boys howling at the moon.
Do you want to make any comments about the Tony Ferguson fight? I know we mentioned it already with the Leech. What do you think about that fight? Were you surprised that it's happening at welterweight, or do you think this is a? I think it kind of makes sense, but I don't want to jump in front of your answer.
It kind of does make sense, but from what we've seen from Tony lately and the type of fighter that the Leech is, it's just kind of evil matchmaking. Like the Leech has looked better and better with his fucking boxing and his fucking just straight up going after. And like who would beat Li Jing Liang would be a wrestler.
Mhm.
That's who's going to beat him. Tony Ferguson isn't going to go up in weight and wrestle.
Mm-mm.
And he's going to get into it and just want to stand. And Liang, he can make people look fucking dumb. And in his last fight, he looked amazing. His striking looked great. So it was like highlight level striking. So it's just it's a weird one for sure. I think there's a lot of guys, Lawler, Barbarina, those type of fight like that Champions League we talked about,
Mhm.
where that's what kind of Tony needs to be in right now, in that Champions League version of it, and he's taking on like a guy who is ascending up the rankings fast.
Any thoughts about the fact that apparently, or I guess this is the rumor that we're hearing, that Tony Ferguson will be going to train at Jackson Winklejohn MMA?
Yeah, no, that was the weirdest report of all of them. That's like going to fucking Jurassic Park the day after all this shit happens. It's like, why would you fucking do that, dude? Like, hey, they like people are like running away from Jurassic Park,
Yes.
and you're just like, hey, there's fucking dinosaurs here, dog, and like you're just like fucking
I'm sure the
driving up.
tickets
Like,
will
why
be
is everybody
discounted.
leaving?
Yeah.
Yeah, god damn, dude.
So many of the fighters that made that gym special are long gone. And the ones that are still there are not really giving it a very good name with the way that they're
Yeah,
fighting. Get your Holly Holmes. I mean, I guess that's about all I can say as far as like high level fighters that are sticking
Diego
around.
Nightmare
Diego
Sanchez.
Sanchez, really a bad
Yeah.
look, man. I don't know. I don't know who Tony expects to go with there, and it's kind of old news already because this came out a bit ago. I've
It's
seen
the most
some.
Tony Ferguson thing
It is.
to do though, is to like, hey, you guys heard it? It's like that slowpoke meme, like, hey, I heard Jackson Wink's good. Remember? You guys remember Keith Jardine? You
The
guys
dean, not the dean of mean.
yeah.
Oh, and then yeah, dude, and how they twist their nipples before the like when
Yeah.
Bruce Buffer's announcing them.
Look how good Sugar Rashad Evans has done for himself.
I don't see anything. I mean, I don't know that how involved Greg Jackson is there as far as the
I
coaching
think
staff
not
now. I don't
at
think he
all,
is very
right?
much anymore. And nothing about the Winklejohn style to me compliments Tony Ferguson at all because he's not a guy who wants to wall install you or anything like that. Like he wants to create scrambles and just find opportunities for violence. And I don't know. It's a weird fit, but
As weird as it is, or he should be at AKA right now. He should be like closing up the gym at AKA right now. That's where Tony Ferguson should be.
now would be a good time to
But
go to AKA, especially where he's going to get a lot of attention. I think there's a lot of guys there that can give him a lot of different looks, the different facets of the game for sure. Good call. AKA, yeah, I'm not even going to speculate on where else you can go. I would need to see a list of the gyms
literally
in front of me, but-
anywhere. Literally anywhere.
Yeah, give me a place where I could finally say with confidence these are the people that Tony Ferguson is going with in the gym. He's sharpening iron with other iron because for the longest time is a mystery. He's just kind of like calling his own shots and kind of running his own training camps. And we really don't know who he's going with. I know for a bit after his most recent loss, he was talking about how he was going to like take it back to the fundamentals and go to a high school wrestling room and get some. And to be honest, that sounded promising. That sounded like maybe that's not a bad idea to get some young guys, who are unitaskers or whatever, but really good at what they do, and put you in positions where you have not been good. I don't know. Yeah, the chin's gone. The fire still seems to be there for Tony Ferguson. We'll just have to see what happens, man. I don't really have anything else on the docket. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Any other current events in the world of
One
mixed martial arts?
championship on Prime Video this weekend is gonna be banging.
We got Marias versus it's the rematch between Mighty Mouse and Adriano Marias for their flyweight championship. And let me pull up. We can talk about that. I did look at that card, but there's not a whole lot on it except for that fight.
Liam Harrison, Rotang.
Rod Tang. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, that's cool, but I don't really care about the
That's
Muay Thai
cool.
fights. I really.
Oh man, fuck you, dude.
I'm not watching because I don't have it.
So this is the last Fight Plug podcast. I'm gonna fucking Luke Rockhold it right now after that.
Because I don't have any context for what it means, or if they have any like divisions or anything like that, or if it really is just
It's
like a Legends
it's
fight.
like the Max. No, it's like a K1 Max style Grand Prix.
I
And
see.
so these 4 fights is like the semifinals.
Yeah,
So
man.
It could be, yeah.
I could care about it, but I just don't know what the structure is. of their
I could care
divisions.
about it, but yeah.
I could, but just right now, I'm not gonna say that I
I
am.
would say to anybody listening to this, if you just enjoy seeing someone like every single appendage on someone's body getting thrown at another man, and then hearing it sound crazy, like those 2 fights, the Liam Harrison fight and the Rotang fight back to back, is going to be wild. Like it's gonna be way different from the shit and not different in a bad way. Not to say that UFC is this much better or worse than. It's like eating Tex-Mex and Mexican food. Like it just They're like it's the same shit, but there's just a
So
little
different.
bit of a different thing about,
Yes, that's
and you
that's
just
an
you can't quite put your finger on it. Like I know these two things are the same.
that is an amazing comparison. Because yeah, there's just like so much
Guess which one
overlap.
would you think is Tex-Mex though?
Oh, between
UFC and
MMA and Muay Thai,
or
or
MMA and Muay Thai. Yeah,
okay.
I mean,
Well,
one championships,
what did you
bone.
what
I think the heart and soul of one championship's Muay Thai to me.
Well, I will ask, what did you actually mean when you made the comparison? Were you talking about the promotions,
I
or
just
were you
meant
talking?
watching the card. Yeah, the
Oh,
promotions,
okay.
but watching the card. So to me, I
I,
don't watch one. I enjoy seeing Rug fight
uh-huh.
as much as the next gentleman. As much as
Uh-huh.
you would like to not see a guy like that walk out of your sister's house.
Hmm.
When you're like, but I'll digress from that. But I just enjoy, I mean, we talk about it all the time. I enjoy some kickboxing. I enjoy K1 Max style, like Grand Prix style
Hmm.
fighting, and they still do that very well.
Yes.
And with the 4 ounce glove
Hmm.
is pretty psycho. And then Liam Harrison, if anyone has ever is like you and you just enjoy watching people fight, the guy fucking like he tries to kill people in the ring. Like he looks like he's trying to like literally like paralyze that person and does not care about how if you crawl, walk, or get rolled out of that ring. So it's weird. It's just very weird to watch. Like when you watch one, and even when they're like in the same weekend, and you
Hmm.
can watch one and then you go and then watch UFC, it's just so different. But
Hmm.
I meant as the promotion, and not Muay Thai and then um, and MMA. But
The
I meant like
promotions version.
one
Yeah.
the promotions versus the other.
I will.
Yeah,
I will say that one is traditional Mexican food. Then
yeah, that's like
that's what it. Okay.
yeah, that's fucking yeah. There's like oh wow, is this cactus? Like you're just like what the like you're like one calls it cactus and then the other one calls it what it is.
These are tripas. You called them.
Yeah,
A little more.
calabacita.
Some
Did I say that right?
yeah, I can see that, and I mean, I've gotten
Let's just
into
say at UFC you can get a strawberry tamale.
exactly.
At a UFC.
Yeah, no, I've been into like K1 and Glory in the past, but never really crossed over and paid or really understood much about Muay Thai. And I'd hear about these crazy records some of these guys would have too. Like they fought like dudes would be like 23 years old and already be like
Like
112 fights deep.
112 and 31.
Exactly.
just getting into it.
And part of me wonders is like, fuck, are this some of these like smokers? Like, what did the venue look like for some of these fights?
Yeah.
Um,
They literally fight in a monkey's castle. It's insane. My daughter trains at Mile Pet in Fresno, and then I was just talking to him the other day about it. Like he'll walk out and like say hi to the families and stuff.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Hey, did you ever fight Roman Deckers?" And he's like, "Yeah, I did." He's like, "Fucking guy could fucking drink a lot." I was like, "This is not." I go, "I pay a lot of fucking money for this shit,
uh,
and this is why." To fucking
exactly.
listen to this guy talk about fighting Roman Deckers. He's like, and then his broken English, the way he says, like, "Eli, good fighter, great fighter, drank too much, man, drank way too much." And then and then I was just starting to get like all rubbery, dude. And then he's like, "Oh yeah," and then his cousin's Buakau. He's like, "Oh, we're finally gonna see each other in 10 years. He's coming to LA. We're gonna fight." And just here, and then he trains with Superbon. So the guy he's over in one FC now.
Mhm.
So he's just like I was just like, oh man, and then he can see like, oh, why is this guy getting like that? And then he's like walk away. He goes, okay, like he got like the creeper vibes. I'm all standing by his car at the end. Hey, remember? And my daughter's just in the car in 107-degree heat.
Why's my dad all being a fangirl right now?
Yeah,
So you know the fucking
not
vibes.
a good look, but whatever. You know the vibes. You know why you're here.
Prime. One is yeah, it's the spice of combat sports for sure because I love like that they're down to have both Muay Thai fights and MMA fights on the same card, and these Muay Thai fights are happening in a cage and stuff. It's fucking wild.
Yeah,
And then I know that
it's crazy.
that
They're all
Mighty
on steroids.
Mouse,
No one gives a
oh,
fuck.
to the gills,
No
to
one
the
gives
gills,
a
Brandon.
fuck.
And then they'll also have like fucking mixed rules matches and shit. Cause I know that
Yeah.
Mighty Mouse fought Rod Tang too, right? Where like
Yeah,
the first
right.
round was Muay Thai and the second round was MMA and like interchanging and stuff. So yeah,
The
shit
fact
is
that they're
wild.
willing to do that, and then they're always saying like, "Hey, like if someone wants to come over here, Charles Oliveira, you want to come over here one night? You come to fucking Singapore and have a good time. Let's see what you want. If you think you can beat our guy, I don't know, maybe."
Let's see what's good.
And it's like they're down for it. I mean, of course, every other promotion is down for it.
Yeah.
And the UFC is just like, no. If the UFC did what they did with Pride, where they sent Chuck Liddell to fucking Japan and just like see what the fuck happened, that would be so fucking cool. And there are some matchups that the UFC just does not want, especially like at the light heavyweight and heavyweight divisions. With one, I think that's where one kind of has UFC's number.
Interesting. Well, man, we will put a cap on it there. We'll probably be talking about or touch on one next week. Normally, I was thinking like we might actually be taking next week off because this weekend is one of the rare weekends where there's actually not a UFC card, but there will still be a UFC card the following week, which we'll have to do a breakdown for anyways. So
big one.
yeah, so we'll definitely be back, and we might actually touch on the results of this one card if it is happening between then and now. The date of this one, 8/26. So that's happening this weekend. So we will definitely talk about the results of the Marius Johnson fight. Until then, Brandon, thank you again for joining me. And I forgot to mention it at the beginning of the episode, but if you're still with us, if you're still listening, hit like, hit subscribe, ring the bell, leave a comment if you're feeling frisky, and we might respond. Other than that, man, unless you have any closing thoughts, I will say good night.